They say fame changes people. But what if it reveals who they really were all along? I met her when no one knew her name, just a girl with dreams too big for her small town. I believed in her more than she believed in herself. Every video, every caption, every perfect smile, I was behind it all. Until one day, she didn't need me anymore. Or so she thought. Because the same camera that built her was still in my hands. And what I captured next would break the internet. They called it a scandal. I called it closure. But before I continue, make sure you're subscribed to the Revenge by Sophia channel and let me know in the comments where you're watching from. We love to see how far our stories travel. The rain outside made the city look like a blurred painting. Silver reflections on the glass, footsteps echoing on wet pavement. I was sitting alone in that dim little coffee shop, editing a small project on my laptop when she walked in. Her hair was damp, her jacket half soaked, but her smile, it was the kind that carried a story. She ordered the cheapest coffee on the menu, then sat near the window, scrolling on her cracked phone with a sigh that sounded heavier than her bag. I don't know why I noticed her. Maybe it was the way she kept whispering to herself, "I just need one chance." Something about her felt desperate and familiar. That's how it started. One random evening, one stranger, one unfinished dream. But even then, I didn't know that the girl sitting across from me would soon rewrite my entire life and destroy it. Frame by frame, we talked for hours that night. She told me her name was Lena, a small-town girl who came to the city to make something out of nothing. She wanted to be a content creator, but no one watched her videos. I saw her old clips. They were raw, unedited, and painfully honest. But there was something real about her, something the world was too blind to notice. So I offered to help. I told her I could edit her videos, fix her sound, guide her on storytelling. Her eyes lit up like city lights. "You'd really do that?" she asked, her voice trembling between hope and disbelief. I said yes. I didn't know why. Maybe I just saw a part of myself in her. Maybe I was lonely too. That night, as we walked out together, the rain had stopped, but something else had started. Something dangerous. Weeks passed, and we became inseparable. Late-night shoots, endless coffee, laughter between takes. I showed her how to talk to the camera like it was her best friend. She started gaining followers, slow at first, then faster. Every notification on her phone made her smile wider, and for a while, I believed it was our success. We would sit on the floor surrounded by ring lights and empty energy drink cans, dreaming about the future, her future, our future. Sometimes she'd look at me and whisper, "When I make it big, you'll be right beside me, okay?" I believed her. I really did. But even then, in the way she said I instead of we, I should have heard the warning. The sound of a promise that would soon turn into a lie. Her numbers were climbing like wildfire. Every morning she'd wake up to new followers, new comments, new brand offers, the kind of attention she'd only dreamed of months ago. The videos I edited for her began trending, and suddenly, Lena wasn't just another girl with a phone. She was an influencer. I watched her record take after take, perfecting her smile until it looked effortless. But behind the camera, she was changing. Her laughter had a rehearsed echo. Her eyes no longer met mine when I spoke. One night, while reviewing her latest shoot, I noticed she'd started cutting out my name from the credits. No edited by, no help from. Just her. I tried to tell myself it didn't matter, that we were a team, that her success was my success. But deep down, a small voice whispered, "This is the beginning of the end." With her growing fame came new people, agents, managers, photographers, faces that smiled too much and taught too fast. They praised her talent, called her a rising star, and treated me like I was part of the background. She started showing up late to our shoots, canceling plans, ignoring my calls. When she did answer, it was always with that same tired line, "I'm busy, babe. You wouldn't understand." But I did understand. I saw the way her world was expanding, and I was being pushed further and further to the edges. The girl who once needed me to hold the camera now barely noticed if I was in the room. Still, I stayed. Because every time she smiled on screen, I remembered the girl in the coffee shop, the one who said she just needed one chance. And I told myself, maybe this is just what fame does to people. But maybe it was doing something worse. Her videos were everywhere now. Reactions, edits, fan pages. People called her the next big thing. I should have been proud, but every compliment she got felt like a knife twisting slowly into my chest. During one late-night shoot, I noticed her scrolling through her DMs, giggling at messages from some industry guy. When I asked who he was, she smiled and said, "Someone who can take me further than you ever could." The room went quiet. The hum of the ring light was the only sound left between us. I wanted to say something, to remind her of how it all started, but her phone lit up again, and she was gone. That night, I stayed up editing her latest video alone. The final frame showed her laughing, her eyes full of ambition and something darker. I stared at the screen, wondering, who was I creating anymore? A star or a stranger? The lights used to feel warm, soft, golden, like they belonged to us. But now they burned. Lena had changed, and not in small ways. She spoke differently, sharper, faster, colder. Every conversation felt like a business meeting, every smile like a performance. She no longer said thank you when I finished editing. She just demanded the next upload time. I'd watch her through the camera lens, trying to recognize the girl I once met, but all I saw was someone sculpted by likes and validation. The fame that once excited her now controlled her. She'd spend hours rehearsing fake emotions, laughing at things she didn't find funny, posting candid moments that were anything but real. One night, as I adjusted the lights, she snapped at me, "You're making me look dull. Fix it." Her voice cut through the air like glass. That was the first time she made me feel small. And the worst part, I let her. We used to brainstorm ideas together. Now she dictated them. She'd hand me a script already written by someone else, saying, "Just make it go viral." When I tried to suggest something creative, she'd roll her eyes and say, "You don't understand what people want." That sentence replayed in my head for days. You don't understand what people want. But didn't I? I understood her better than anyone. I'd seen her cry when no one cared, laugh at her own failures, dream of a world that didn't laugh back. I was the one who built her image, pixel by pixel, word by word. And now I was just another forgotten shadow behind her spotlight. Some nights I'd hear her laughing on the phone, whispering to someone else, "He's good for now, but I'll need real people soon." I didn't know who real people meant, but I knew it wasn't me. It was a simple video shoot. Nothing unusual, her sitting by a window, pretending to talk about gratitude and loyalty. But halfway through filming, she paused, glanced at her reflection, and muttered, "They love me because I'm me, not because of anyone else." Her words hit harder than they should have. I felt a strange chill run through my spine, like the room had lost its air. Later, as I reviewed the footage, I caught a tiny moment right before she smiled for the camera. Her eyes went blank, empty, like she'd switched off the part of herself that was human. I replayed it over and over, trying to find something real in her expression, but there was nothing left. That was the night I realized I wasn't working with the girl I met in the coffee shop anymore. I was editing the rise of someone else, someone built from lies, filters, and ambition sharper than a knife. And deep inside, something in me started to fracture. It started with whispers, little things that didn't make sense. Unexplained absences, calls she took outside, new brands mentioning her before I even edited a clip. At first, I thought it was me overthinking, but one night, curiosity got louder than reason. I checked her email drafts, and what I found made my chest tighten. She had been negotiating deals behind my back, taking full credit for our content, and describing herself as a one-woman team. Not a single mention of me, not even in passing. I scrolled down, my hands trembling, and saw a message she sent to a manager. "He's just a friend who helps for now. Once I hit 50 OK, I'll move on to professionals." The screen blurred as my eyes filled with tears. That sentence played over and over, like a cruel echo I couldn't silence. It wasn't just betrayal. It was erasure. When I confronted her, she didn't even flinch. She was sitting in front of the mirror, applying makeup for a new shoot, as if nothing in the world could shake her. "Why are you hiding things from me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. She looked up, her reflection smirking before her lips did. "Because you wouldn't understand business," she said casually, brushing off my question like dust on her sleeve. I stepped closer. "Business? Or betrayal?" Her eyes met mine, cold and empty. "You helped me get here, yes. But you can't keep up anymore. I've outgrown this." U.S. Her words sliced through the silence, sharp and deliberate. I stood there, watching her apply her lipstick like a soldier painting her armor, calm, beautiful, and completely heartless. Somewhere inside, something snapped. But I said nothing. Because how do you argue with someone who's already rewritten the truth? The next morning, she posted a video, smiling, glowing, speaking softly about toxic people who hold you back. She didn't name me, but every word felt aimed at my chest. "Sometimes," she said in that sweet, rehearsed tone, "you have to cut off negativity, even if it once felt like love." Within hours, the comments flooded in. "So proud of you, Queen. You deserve better." He was jealous anyway. My phone buzzed with messages from mutual friends, confused, cold, curious. I wanted to explain, to tell the truth, but what good would it do? She had already framed me in the eyes of thousands. I watched her video again, seeing her fake tears glisten under the ring light I had set up myself. And for the first time, I didn't feel heartbreak. I felt something darker, something quiet, slow, and growing. It wasn't sadness anymore. It was the beginning of revenge. The morning her video went viral, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Not from friends, from strangers. Comments, messages, tags, all calling me things I never was: jealous, abusive, toxic. Screenshots of her crying face spread like wildfire across every platform, each one painting me as the villain in her story. I remember scrolling through the chaos in silence, hearing my heart beat louder than the phone's vibration. My name was nowhere in her captions, but my ghost lived in every comment. People love heroes, but they worship victims, and she played that role perfectly. I tried explaining the truth to a few who asked, but my words were drowned out by thousands who didn't care. The world had already made up its mind. And for the first time, I realized she hadn't just taken my love. She'd taken my voice. Days turned into weeks, and I disappeared, quietly. No posts, no replies, no updates. My editing setup gathered dust. My inbox filled with forgotten projects. The apartment, once filled with laughter and late-night work, now echoed with nothing but the soft hum of my unused computer. Everywhere I looked, I saw traces of her favorite mug on the counter, her perfume still haunting the air, her laughter lingering in my memory like a song stuck on repeat. Sometimes I'd play our old videos just to hear her voice again, only to end up closing my laptop halfway through, unable to breathe. I avoided mirrors because I didn't recognize the man in them anymore. I used to be her shadow, but now even my shadow was fading. And yet, beneath all that silence, something was changing, a thought taking shape. A thought that whispered, if she built her fame on lies, maybe the truth deserves its own spotlight. It happened one night, late, cold, and quiet. I was lying on the floor, surrounded by old hard drives and half-empty coffee cups, staring at the ceiling. My mind kept replaying every moment, her fake tears, her betrayal, her laughter. Then, almost without thinking, I opened one of the drives. Inside were hundreds of raw clips, unedited takes, rehearsals, behind-the-scenes moments she never posted. Moments where she wasn't perfect. Moments where she slipped, mocking her fans, lying in interviews, laughing about the people who believed in her. I watched, frozen. Each clip was a piece of a puzzle I didn't know I was collecting. By the time I reached the final folder, I felt a strange calm spread through me. She had used my camera to rise, but maybe, just maybe, it was also the weapon that would bring her down. And as that idea grew, so did my heartbeat. Slow, steady, dangerous. He disappeared, just like that. No texts, no calls, no online presence. One day he was everywhere in her life, and the next it was as if he'd been deleted. Lena noticed, of course, but she didn't say it out loud. When people asked about him, she'd laugh and say, "Oh, he's busy doing his own thing," as if the silence didn't bother her. But late at night, when she scrolled through old photos, she'd pause for a second longer than usual before locking her screen. Meanwhile, he stayed offline, invisible but watching. She didn't know that he still checked her uploads from a different account, listening to every fake laugh, every hollow "thank you" she gave her fans. And with each video she posted, his anger didn't grow louder. It grew colder. Because he realized she didn't replace him. She only tried to erase him. But some ghosts refused to stay gone. Months passed, and Lena became unstoppable. Brand deals, photo shoots, talk shows. She was the face everyone wanted. She'd arrive at events dressed in perfection, her smile rehearsed down to the breath. The cameras adored her, the fans worshipped her, and she learned to play the part so well that even she began to believe it. Behind every glamorous post, though, her eyes told a different story. There was a tiredness, a kind that makeup couldn't hide. Sometimes she'd film a video and stop midway, staring into the lens as if expecting someone to adjust the lighting. But no one did. The silence after each take was deafening. And though she didn't admit it, she missed the voice that once guided her from behind the camera, the one that used to say, "Perfect shot, Lena." But pride has a way of drowning out guilt. And so she smiled wider, as if she could bury the truth beneath the flash, while the world praised her. He stayed in the shadows, watching her illusion grow taller, waiting for the perfect moment to make it fall. He spent nights organizing files, renaming clips, syncing timelines, like a surgeon preparing for an operation. Each folder he opened revealed another mask she wore, another lie she sold. Outside, the city lived in noise, but his apartment was silent, the only sound being the soft hum of his computer. Sometimes he'd stop, hands trembling on the keyboard, wondering if he was going too far. But then he'd remember her words, "You can't keep up with me," and the hesitation would vanish. By the time dawn light touched his desk, the video folders were ready, her perfect empire resting on the edge of exposure. He took a deep breath and whispered to himself, "Not yet," because some stories don't end with rage. They end with precision. It was 2:47 a.m. when he found it, a small, dusty hard drive buried at the back of a drawer he hadn't opened since she left. At first, he didn't recognize it. Its label was faded, smeared with coffee stains, but when he plugged it in, the familiar folders appeared on his screen, raw footage, behind the scenes, outtakes. He almost smiled. These were their earliest memories, moments before the fame, before the lies. He clicked one at random. The screen flickered, and there she was, laughing, unfiltered, real. Then another clip, her shouting at him to fix the lighting, eyes sharp with irritation. Another, mocking her followers off camera, saying, "They'd believe anything if I cry enough." His breath caught. The deeper he searched, the uglier the truth became. Every clip tore down another piece of the illusion she built. And as the last video ended, he sat in the dark, the faint glow of the screen reflecting off his eyes, wide, hollow, and awake. The truth wasn't gone. It had been waiting. He started watching everything, hours of footage, frame by frame, studying her expressions the way a detective studies evidence. Her charm, her tone, the cracks between her smiles, he could see it all now. The lies weren't loud. They were subtle, hidden between breaths, behind her fake thank yous, in the way she glanced at the camera when she thought he wasn't looking. And the more he watched, the more he realized that he wasn't the only one she deceived. She'd been playing everyone, her fans, her sponsors, her friends. In one clip, she laughed and said, "They don't love me. They love who I pretend to be." That sentence echoed in his room long after the video ended. It wasn't heartbreak anymore. It was revelation. He finally understood. She didn't destroy him by accident. She did it because she thought no one would ever see who she really was. But the camera had seen everything. And the camera never forgets that. As dawn crept through his window, painting the room in pale gray, he leaned back in his chair, exhausted yet alive for the first time in months. He looked at the monitor, her frozen image, mid-laugh, unaware that her own performance would soon become her undoing. He thought about how she once said, "The internet never forgets." Now those words felt poetic. He could expose everything, every lie, every act, every smile that wasn't real. Not out of spite, but out of justice, out of truth. He opened a new project file, the screen glowing white like a blank confession. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, trembling with both fear and anticipation. And then he whispered, "If she built her fame with my hands, I'll end it with them too." The first video clip loaded, and somewhere far away, the clock began counting down to her downfall. He began like any careful craftsman, sorting, labeling, and cataloging every clip with a surgeon's patience. Files named laugh_outtake_03, DM_mock_01, sneer_behind_01 lined up on the screen, each one a small, undeniable truth. He watched them not to relive pain, but to build a story, the rise, the rehearsals, the private contempt she'd never wanted the world to see. Every awkward laugh and staged tear became a brushstroke. Every muttered insult, a piece of the portrait he intended to reveal. He paused often to breathe, to steady his hand, because this was not revenge that screamed. It was revenge that whispered and then detonated. By the end of the night, the spine of the expose was there, raw footage threaded into a narrative that could not be argued with. He knew that truth alone wouldn't move everyone. Presentation would. So he fashioned a voice for the video that was colder than anger, but warmer than malice. Calm, precise, and devastatingly factual. No accusations shouted. No dramatic music to manipulate sympathy. Just footage, timestamps, and short on-screen notes that guided the viewer like a flashlight through a dark room. He edited out his own emotions from the cut, refusing to become the star of his own unmaking. The camera would speak for itself. Occasionally, he added a silent pause so the viewer could feel the weight of a look or the sting of a lie. The result felt clinical and inevitable, like a verdict read in a courtroom where the jury had already seen the evidence. He planned the release like a tactical operation, not uploaded in anger, but launched with cold precision. Anonymous accounts, staggered uploads, backup mirrors, a strike team of accounts ready to seed the clip into forums and reaction channels. He mapped every pathway of her fame and prepared to intercept it. Timing mattered. A weekend, when gossip spreads fastest and sponsors notice quickest. He rehearsed his exit too, deleting metadata traces, using VPNs, and ensuring the focus remained on the footage, not the messenger. As he sat back, watching the final render queue crawl toward completion, he felt a mix of dread and clarity, the last steadying breath before a storm. With one finger hovering over the upload button, he whispered to the room, "Let the world decide." He hit upload at 10:07 p.m., the cursor spinning like a heartbeat as the file crawled to life on the screen. For the first few minutes, nothing seemed to happen, just the soft glow of the monitor and the echo of his own breathing. Then the notifications began, a single share, then a reaction clip, then a comment from an account with thousands of followers. Within an hour, the numbers doubled, then exploded. The video leapt into suggested feeds, reaction channels clipped the worst moments, and strangers began to stitch and remix her most damning lines. He watched the view counter like someone watching a rise in tide, equal parts fascinated and terrified. The quiet room outside his window felt distant, as if the city itself had leaned forward to watch what would happen next. And somewhere inside, where silence once lived, noise was starting to roar. The reaction was immediate and brutal. Fans who once defended her now scrolled with narrowed eyes. Sponsors put statements on hold, and trending tabs lit up with her name in angry fonts. Overnight, journalists reached out, asking for comment. Podcasters dissected every clip. Late-night hosts made jokes that hit like barbed wire. Her carefully curated image splintered into 1,000 sharp fragments, each one reflecting a truth she had tried to hide. Messages poured into his old phone account, some celebrating, some condemning, but most were simply stunned silence. He watched headlines form like predatory birds circling over a field, and with every new article, the air around him grew colder. For the first time since she rose, the world saw the cracks he'd been cataloging in secret. Brands that once sent contracts now sent lawyers. Deals were paused. Endorsements vanished like smoke. Her manager called frantic, then furious, then desperate. She posted a half-hearted apology video within days, shaky voice, practiced regret, eyes darting to where the ring light once sat. But the clips he'd chosen were surgical. They didn't allow room for a staged apology to stick. People downloaded, reposted, and built timelines of deceit that were impossible to erase. In private, she messaged him through a burner account, pleading, begging, promising anything to make the storm stop. He read the messages without replying, watching her try to stitch her world back together while the threads unraveled faster than she could pull them. After a week of chaos, the noise began to fade, not because people forgot, but because they'd already judged. Her followers stopped refreshing her page. Sponsors quietly erased her name from campaigns. The comments under her old videos turned into graveyards of disbelief and betrayal. At first, she tried to respond, to fight, to defend, but every word only made things worse. Soon, she stopped posting altogether. The apartment that once buzzed with ring lights and phone calls was now a tomb of silence, only broken by the soft hum of her disconnected Wi-Fi router. Sometimes, she'd stare at the blank screen for hours, hoping the comments would slow down. But the internet never sleeps. And her downfall had become everyone's favorite bedtime story. Days blurred into nights. Her reflection became her only audience. Dark circles, trembling lips, the fading ghost of the woman she once pretended to be. She'd whisper to herself, "I can fix this. I can come back." But even her voice cracked in disbelief. The mirror didn't answer, only showed her what she'd become, a stranger wearing yesterday's makeup and regret. She replayed old clips, trying to feel the energy of her former self, but even the smile she once mastered now looked foreign. Every notification sound made her flinch. Every buzz felt like judgment arriving in waves. And at night, when her phone finally went silent, She swore she could still hear the faint echo of her own laughter from those old recordings, mocking her from the past. The fame she once craved had turned into her reflection's curse. One night, she opened her old folder labeled Dreams, filled with photos, scripts, and plans that once defined her future. The screen flickered, and her own handwriting glared back at her. One day, the world will know my name. Tears blurred the words until they looked like smudged ink. She deleted every file, every project, every reel, every memory, as if erasing her digital self would erase the pain. But when she reached for the camera one last time, something inside her stopped. She stared at its black lens, the same lens that had captured her lies, and whispered, "You saw everything, didn't you?" Her hands shook. The screen reflected her eyes, hollow, red, and human for the first time in years. Then she closed it. And for the first time since her fame began, she disappeared. He never reached out. Not once. But he watched, through anonymous accounts, through whispers on forums, through the fading pulse of her online presence. Each day, her follower count dropped a little more, her sponsors vanished, and her face disappeared from trending tabs like dust fading from sunlight. He didn't smile. There was no triumph in it, just a quiet, almost clinical satisfaction, like watching gravity reclaim what once defied it. Sometimes he'd catch short clips of her final attempts at relevance, shaky live streams, hollow apologies drowned by comments. And though he felt no pity, he noticed the tremble in her voice, not from guilt, but from fear. The same fear she once made him feel when she used his name, his talent, his trust. Now she was living inside that fear, trapped in the very echo chamber she built. Weeks later, an email arrived in his inbox. No name, just a subject line. "Please." "I know it's you." He hesitated, reading it twice, the room suddenly colder. The message was short, a plea wrapped in desperation. She wrote that she couldn't sleep, that every time she closed her eyes, she saw the clips replaying in her head. She begged for him to take the videos down, to let her start over, to forgive her mistakes. But her words didn't sound like remorse. They sounded like survival. He hovered over the reply button, his fingers frozen between anger and amusement. Then, with a slow breath, he typed, "The truth doesn't go away just because it hurts," and pressed send. Days later, he attended a local film event, not for her, but for himself, for the first time in years. He stood near the back, blending into the crowd, until he saw her walk in. No camera crew, no glittering entourage, just a shadow of the person she used to be, wearing sunglasses inside, her shoulders hunched. When their eyes met, the world seemed to pause. She froze mid-step, recognition hitting her like a wave. For a moment, he thought she might approach. But she didn't. She turned away, trembling, as if the floor itself rejected her presence. And as he watched her leave the room she once commanded, he realized something quietly terrifying. He no longer hated her. He pitied her. And that pity felt colder than any revenge could ever be. It started with whispers in the dark. She couldn't tell if they were real, voices echoing her name through sleepless nights. Every sound, every creak of the apartment seemed to speak back to her. The glow of her phone on the bedside table burned like judgment. She tried to distract herself. New projects, new posts, fake smiles, but no one cared anymore. The world had moved on, yet she couldn't. One night, she stared into her bathroom mirror for hours, whispering, "I didn't mean to hurt him. I just wanted to be seen." But the reflection didn't believe her. And as her tears fogged the glass, she finally whispered something she hadn't said aloud in years, his name. That was the night she decided to confess. It was 3:21 a.m. when his phone lit up. Unknown number. He almost ignored it until instinct told him otherwise. When he answered, there was silence. Then a voice, weak, trembling, familiar. "Please, just let me talk," she said. He didn't hang up. He couldn't. There was something broken in her tone, something that didn't sound like manipulation this time. She told him she couldn't live with it anymore, that she needed to tell him something he never knew. Something about the way his first project went viral, how she'd sabotaged his uploads, replaced his name, and used his footage before he even realized. Each word hit like a slow knife. He wanted to hate her again. But instead, he just listened. Quietly, almost numbed. She confessed everything. How the fame had started with a lie. How she'd stolen his early videos, posted them under her name, and built her brand on the foundation of his forgotten work. Her voice cracked as she spoke, the truth spilling between sobs and static. She said she thought success would make it all worth it, that he'd forgive her once she brought them both into the spotlight. But power had changed her. The fame that once felt like victory now felt like poison. When she finished, there was silence, the kind of silence that feels alive. He didn't reply for a long time. And then he said softly, "You didn't just use me to get famous. You erased me." Before she could answer, the call disconnected, leaving her voice trapped inside his voicemail forever. 2 days after the call, she reappeared online. No makeup, no filters, no background music, just her, sitting in a dimly lit room, eyes red and tired. The title of the stream read, "The Truth About Me." For the first minute, no one believed it was real. Viewers joined expecting another performance, another apology crafted for sympathy. But when she began to speak, her voice carried something unfamiliar, sincerity. She confessed everything publicly. The lies, the stolen work, the manipulation, the fame that wasn't hers. Each sentence felt like a wound reopening, each pause heavy with years of deceit. Tears streamed down her face as she said his name, the first time she'd spoken it publicly. And the viewers, stunned into silence, watched as the mask she wore for years finally cracked in real time. He watched the live stream from his laptop, not out of curiosity, but because someone sent him the link. At first, he didn't believe what he was hearing. But as she kept speaking, admitting every detail, something inside him shifted. For years, he imagined this moment as triumph, her fall as justice. But now, watching her break down under the weight of her own guilt, it didn't feel like victory anymore. It felt sad. When she finished her confession, she looked into the camera and whispered, "I don't deserve forgiveness. But I hope he hears this." He closed his laptop slowly, the sound echoing in the quiet room. For the first time in years, he didn't feel anger. He felt the kind of emptiness that comes when revenge has done its job and left nothing behind. The next morning, her channel disappeared. All videos, streams, and accounts gone. Her profile picture turned blank, her links broken. People speculated. Did she quit? Was she forced out? Did she run? No one knew. But he received one final email, no attachments, no signature. Just 3 words. Thank you, goodbye. He read it again and again, his eyes resting on the word thank you, unsure whether it meant relief, regret, or surrender. Somewhere deep down, he realized she wasn't seeking redemption from the world. She was seeking it from herself. And maybe that was something even truth couldn't fix. Her disappearance dominated headlines for a week. Speculations turned into theories, and theories into gossip. Some said she fled to another country. Others claimed she couldn't handle the shame. But as always, the internet moved on, hungry for the next scandal, the next downfall. Her name faded from trends. Her videos were re-uploaded by strangers. Her story recycled in top 10 internet controversies compilations. To everyone else, it was just another digital ghost story. But for him, it wasn't over. Every time he opened his computer, her old thumbnails would still appear in his recommended feed, haunting reminders of the empire he helped build and destroy. The world forgot her, but he never could. He stopped editing for a while. His studio gathered dust, the soft hum of his PC replaced by the ticking of a clock that seemed louder every night. He thought revenge would feel like freedom, that exposing her would finally erase the ache she left behind. But instead, it carved something deeper inside him, a hollow that truth couldn't fill. He replayed her confession sometimes, not out of satisfaction, but out of confusion, as if searching for something he missed. Each time her trembling voice echoed the same sentence, "I just wanted to be seen." And he'd whisper back to the empty room, "I see you now." But too late. Outside, rain tapped against the window like soft applause from a world that no longer cared who was right or wrong. Months passed. He returned to work slowly, not to create, but to remember who he was before her. One night, while cleaning his old drives, he found a video he hadn't seen in years, their very first collaboration. In it, she laughed genuinely, unscripted, carefree. Before the fame, before the lies. For a moment, he almost smiled. He didn't delete it. He couldn't. He simply renamed it Before Everything and closed the folder. That night, as the computer's fan hummed softly, he realized something. Revenge hadn't destroyed her. It had only made sure neither of them could ever go back. And that truth was heavier than any guilt. His apartment felt larger now, the same space where everything began, yet somehow emptier. No music, no laughter, no late-night editing marathons. Just the soft whir of his ceiling fan and the hum of unfinished memories. He sat by his desk, scrolling through old footage, the sound of her voice echoing faintly through the speakers. The once vibrant colors of their early projects now looked pale and ghostly, like scenes from a life that belonged to someone else. He closed the file and looked around the room. The same camera, the same lens, the same story, but everything had changed. He had built her fame, then dismantled it. And in the process, he'd lost the version of himself that once believed in people. The room wasn't empty. It was full of ghosts only he could see. He caught his reflection in the dark window, tired eyes, heavier than the night itself. It struck him that he had become exactly what she once was, someone defined by what others watched, by the story he told. Only this time, his story wasn't about fame. It was about revenge. He whispered, almost to himself, was it worth it? There was no answer, only the distant sound of traffic below, indifferent to his question. He opened the browser and searched her name. Nothing, no new posts, no trace. For the first time, she was truly gone. And as he stared at the blank search results, he felt something unexpected, not relief, not victory, but a hollow ache where hatred used to live. One night, he opened a new video project, his last one. It wasn't an expose or a revenge cut. It was a quiet montage of memories, laughter, collaboration, unfiltered moments from before everything fell apart. He added no titles, no commentary, just raw truth. At the end, he wrote a single line on the screen. We both went viral. But only one of us survived it. He uploaded it under no name, no credit, no tags. Just silence. And as the video went live, he leaned back in his chair, staring at the dim light flickering across his face. For the first time, he didn't feel anger or even pain. Just a quiet surrender to what was and what could never be again. They say revenge doesn't heal, but sometimes it reveals. I didn't ruin her life. I just showed the world the version she hid. She wanted to go viral, and she did, just not the way she dreamed. In every story, there's a villain and a victim, but sometimes they wear the same face. Fame is strange like that. It amplifies your truth, no matter how ugly it is. As for me, I learned that silence speaks louder when it's recorded. And the loudest love stories end not with "I love you," but with "upload complete."